How's it going, YouTube? Coming to you today with another video. And today, guys, what I bring to you is a brand new striker spell, Sky Striker Immobilized Linkage. The community itself has a huge pool of mixed emotions on this card, and rightfully so. When a card comes out for an archetype, especially one like Striker, there's always going to be people on both sides of the coin. But today, I want to bring to you just facts about what the card can do, but I also want to tell you my own personal opinion on this card, and is it really that good? The other thing we're going to be talking about today is going to be the card that really just slipped in with the other ones, and it's honestly one of the most broken things I've read in a long time, especially because of its synergy with Striker. So we're going to be talking about both of these cards today, so I'm really excited to be sharing this information with you because these are new. They're really fun to really just try to figure out what they can do for the game and what they can do for the decks that they could be slipped into, right? So to start things off, let's go right into Linkage and talk about what the card does exactly. So essentially, it's a quick play spell. If you control no monsters in your main monster zone, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn after this card resolves, except Sky Striker Ace monsters. Also, send one other card you control to the grave. If you do, special summon a Sky Striker Ace monster from your extra deck to the EMZ. If you have at least one light and one dark Sky Striker Ace monster on your field or in your graveyard, the summoned monster gains 1,000 attack. So what's really cool about this is that you can just kind of have a Hornet Drone-esque effect where you're just getting a monster on board if you don't already have one. So it's just another way to be able to play the game, another way to have a starter, because it almost just feels like it's another copy of Rose, right? But it's just a spell, because if your Link dies, then like you don't really have ways to get it back. At least it's nice if you have the Rose and you have like an afterburner, you can like kill their EMG monster, but like it's still like a pseudo Hornet Drone, right? So it's not like the worst thing. It's not the best. We're going to be talking about a couple of the interactions with it, and then I'm going to give you my own personal opinion on this card. So to start with, like the first one here is that it's kind of cool because in your opponent's end phase, you can go ahead and like rip this and then like end phase Shizuku to add whatever you need to. And again, this just plays around things like Valor, which is really nice. So that's a pretty nice interaction with the card, I would think. The next thing here is that it prevents OTKs. So like if you're going to be just kind of one-shotted or like you feel like a lot of damage is coming on, you can kind of just tag out into a kinda if need be. Or if you are just in a really bad situation, you just don't even have a Link monster, you can go ahead and just like drop the kinda when you need to, which is just making this card that much better, right? I do feel like for the next one here, dodging an Imperm, it's good, right? Because like you can go Kagari, and then if they Imperm or like hit you with like a Widow Anchor in the mirror, right, then you can go ahead and like do this and like try to like get rid of the Kagari, so that the effect will resolve. But at that point, I'd almost want to just run like Cross Out, right, or like just something different, or like an Eagle Booster. You know, this just like feels a lot worse. And like it's a good card for the fact that it has nice interaction, but it's also pretty bad because like the deck didn't really need more ways to the extra deck, right? Like we needed more ways to Ray, in my opinion. So like I don't think that this really solves any of the problems that we're having, but I do think that it has good application in the deck. So again, being able to like dodge Imperms, being able to search in the end phase, being able to prevent the OTK. There is some really cool things this card can do. We're going to be talking about a couple more here. One being an OTK line. So if your opponent has nothing on the board, right, and you open a Ray plus this spell, you can literally kill Null and Striker against an open board, which is kind of nuts because we're not able to do that typically in this deck. So this is kind of nice to see. So you can go Ray attack for 15, then go Hayate attack for 15, dump Rose, activate the spell, summon Kagari. Kagari will then attack for 25, which is pretty nice here. And then you can go ahead and add back the spell, and then go Shizuku attack for 25, and that's 8k. So this is just another line of play here that just allows you to just absolutely kill, which we don't really have usually. So for this reason too, I feel like it is pretty interesting. So again, there's both sides of the coin, right? Like, Again, you'd almost rather just be like another copy of Rose, so you have just like another 100% surefire way to get to a monster, plus you at least have a way to recur. And then you also have the argument where it's like, oh, if you're only using it for dodging imperms, then you might as well just be playing like booster. And like both arguments are valid, but I want to show you like the more positive sides to the card too, and what it really can accomplish. Because having the OTK line alone might warrant to play the card. I'm definitely playing this card at 1 at least. I think it's probably a maximum of 1, but it's still like a nice option to have in the deck, right? Because at the end of the day, Sky Striker is a toolbox deck. What we've always meant by that is that every single card serves a different purpose in the deck, and they always mirror other cards in the game. So it's really nice just to have this as another option in the deck, another utility card, where if you do need to go for an OTK, this is an optimal line that you can do. So I still like it for that reason, but I don't know if it's like be all end all what we like actually needed for the deck, right? The fact that like you have to control nothing in the main monster zone, it doesn't synergize with the kaiju, and that doesn't sit right with me, especially when they're coming out at the same time. So that's kind of unfortunate, but that's just another thing that you got to think about too when you have cards like this, is like how well do they synchronize with the other cards in the archetype already. So that's just another thing here. The next thing is that it has a similar interaction like Droplet, where if you have a spell on field like Widow Anchor and then you chain Droplet, you can send the anchor to the graveyard, and then if the anchor is the 3rd spell in your grave, then the anchor will resolve to steal your opponent's monster. It's going to work the same way with this card. So like if you activate Anchor and then activate Linkage to like summon out like whatever link you want, this card, when it resolves, will send your anchor to the graveyard, and then if the anchor becomes the 3rd spell, it will then allow you to go ahead and steal the monster. So there's some cool application with this card that still warrant it to be used in the deck as far as like a really solid utility goes. I want to start this one off with a shout out to Cody Angeloff, Austin Smothers, and Sam Wynn, also my entire Discord community, for allowing me to bounce ideas and really be able to find as many interactions with this card as possible, because we always want to know what the new cards do, right? Are they broken? How many interactions will it have, especially right now? So this is going to be the most that I can find for you. Also ones that we can just kind of think of at the current moment, because we don't really know what's going to be released yet between now and then, right? This could come out whenever it wants to. But there is one interaction that I think is really cool, and as I was talking to Sam, is that if you are playing pure, Metalfoes Fusion seems almost mandatory then, because you have the ability to just go ahead and send it, and then if you do draw it again, you can go ahead and then rip the linkage again, then send the Metalfoes Fusion again, and then you keep netting advantage off of having to send a card, right? So I think that's a really cool interaction here, and just another thing, because Metalfoes Fusion's always been in and out of the deck for a long time now, so I don't think that it's unheard of to re-add it back now, just so you have the ability to keep floating and gaining that card advantage. I think this is really cool and noteworthy. Another thing that I want to mention is the fact that Linkage is heavily restricted where Hornet Drone is not, and this is just essentially a worse Hornet Drone. Of course, it has other application, but if you think about it objectively, it still gets you to a monster, but it's still kind of like a Hornet Drone. What's really interesting about this in particular is that I could see them banning Hornet Drone and giving us back 2 Engage, because at that point it's not splashable. So if you see like my community poll and why I put up the drone potentially banned, this is why I would think that, is because this is actually a very common thought that's been in the community for a while now, is that if they ban drone, we could have 2 Engage because the engine wouldn't be splashable. So with the ability to have a card like Linkage and how heavily restricted it is, I could see that potentially happening. So for this next one, we're going to be talking about exactly why this card is so absurd, because I'm honestly so surprised that no one else is talking about this right now. This is one of the craziest things that I've ever read, especially because of the synergy that it has with Striker. This is one of the most like high impact, most meaningful late game draws I've ever seen. The ability to just like see this and just know that you can crack like almost any board that you're about to run into is just absurd to me. So let's go ahead and talk about why I'm so hyped up over this card when we read the effect. So what this card does is that you can special summon 1 from your hand, but its effects are negated. Then immediately after this effect resolves, link summon using that monster you control. This link summon cannot be negated Also, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects when a monster is linked some this way. So I actually had to ask a few judges before I made this because I want to make sure this worked this way that I thought it did. So essentially, whenever you make your Kagari, your opponent cannot respond to the effect of Kagari to add back, which is crazy because it's still in the same window if you chain your Widow Anchors to it or like a twin. So you can go ahead and like rip this card, special summon Ray from your hand, summon Kagari, add one back, chain like a Widow to steal, and like a Twin Twister to like blow up back row, and your opponent just can't respond to you. This card is actually just absurd for the deck, and like one of the craziest things that you're just allowed to have. So I'm really excited for this card coming out, and the ability to just have this in your back pocket, again, just as a late game draw, is honestly insane. It's even pretty good mid game, I would say, too. But no one's really talking about this right now, and it's really shocking to me, honestly. But I don't have many more words about this. It's just the fact that you can go ahead and then your Kagari just can't be messed with. The summon can't be stopped. You can go ahead and chain whatever you want to it. It's like Meltdown. It's honestly just insane. But I hope that you all enjoyed the cards today. There's so many new cards out there, and we always have to learn like the interactions, the applications, and really make a decision on if the card is good or bad, and can it see play later on as things change. So I really do like making videos like this and talking about certain cards that come out, just because I always like to see if there are potential in certain cards. But again, if you're not already part of the community, feel free to join me on Twitter, Twitch, Discord. And if you do want a session on Metafy, feel free to go and check that out in the description below as well. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I hope that you all have a wonderful night. Thank you.